All right, so what we are painting today is this fun winter scene here. I'm going to show you the actual reference photo as well on my computer, so that you have both. If you'd like to screenshot this, feel free. But this is a really lovely little composition here. I love how it frames the composition with these two trees, and I love the contrast between the kind of orange and brown and the leaves and the gray and blue of the snow. So that's kind of why I picked this reference photo and why I did this painting. I just like that contrast between those colors and the framing of the composition. So we are going to do this today. I'm going to show you real quick the actual reference photo. If you're watching this on YouTube later, the reference photo is linked in the description of this video. It is from Unsplash. I believe this is part of Unsplash Plus. And just a quick note about that. I do pay for Unsplash Plus. It is where I can get my reference photos if I don't have them myself. If you don't pay for Unsplash Plus, you can still use this photo just for practice. You can use any photo and not worry about copyright as long as you're not trying to make money off of your painting. If you are trying to make money, sell a painting, or sell a video that you use the reference photo in, you do need to make sure it's royalty-free or be paying for some sort of website or service that gives you royalty-free photos. So just a quick note on that. If you're just practicing, you can use this photo or any photo that you find just on the internet. So just keep that in mind. If you'd like to screenshot this right now, please feel free to do that. We are going to be kind of working from back to front in this painting. So we are going to start with the sky and this kind of background here, and then we are going to paint in the leaves, and then we'll do the trees last. So that's kind of the order that we're going to do this. And again, I will lead you through everything. A hairdryer would not be a bad idea for this painting if you have one in your house. Just for the first couple of layers, it'll be nice to kind of get those dry so that we can keep moving throughout this live. Okay, so you'll see that reference photo again. It is not going away permanently, but I am going to just briefly talk about my materials because that's always a question that I get. So my watercolor paper here is this Fluid 100% cotton watercolor paper. This is a watercolor block. It is 6 by 8 inches and 140 pounds GSM. And watercolor block means that all of the pages are glued together on the long sides and they are not glued on the short sides. And this just kind of holds the paper down while I'm painting on it. And then once I'm done with my painting, I just remove the glue and I can lift off the paper. Again, whatever you have is fine. These pads, these like watercolor blocks are not very expensive. They're in my Amazon storefront if you want them. It's good quality paper. My watercolor paints are Winsor Newton as per usual. This is kind of a custom palette that I have collected with all of my favorite colors. This is also linked in my Amazon storefront as well. And then my brushes are Princeton Neptune for these two. It's a 10 round and a 4 round. And then I have a 2 round for my detail brush, which is from Christy Rice's painting set. All of these are linked in my Amazon storefront as well. So basically for the brushes, you just need a big, a medium, and a small. That's what I would recommend. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is add a little drop of water to each of our paints. And we always start out our paintings this way so that we can start to get those colors dissolved. It is really hard to work with watercolors before you've added water. So we just add a little drop of water to each color. We might not use each color, but it's nice to get them ready anyway. And while we're doing this, I am just going to give you my little recommendation as we do start the painting. This is meant to just be fun. It is meant to be practice. I hope you learn something and I hope you have fun. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself to make a perfect painting. We are just practicing, and especially if you're new to watercolor, it does take some practice. So try to enjoy it, have fun, learn something, be kind to yourself, be kind to everybody in the comments, be nice to me, and we will all have a good time. The other thing I was going to say is if you have any questions throughout this live, if you are confused about anything I'm saying, please do put it in the comments, and I will try to keep track of all the comments. If someone else has a question that you know the answer to, please feel free to answer that in the comments as well. I like when people help each other out with that because sometimes I can't answer all of the questions. Okay, so while those paints soak, we are going to do a quick pencil sketch just to figure out where these trees are going to go. So the 3 kind of lines we need, if I can bring this reference photo. Go halfway up the paper. And so we're going to draw out that horizon line. We might draw out a light line to figure out where that hill is going to be. And then we're going to add our trees here in the foreground. Okay, so let's start with that horizon line. I am going to put that, like I said, just below halfway up the paper. I am just going to freehand a relatively straight line. It does not need to be perfect. Okay. And if you'd like to add the hills on top, you can add a semi-wavy line just kind of on top of that horizon line there. So that's what that looks like so far. I recommend drawing pretty lightly with your pencil because you don't want it to show through the painting at the end. Okay, and then let's add these two trees. I'm gonna add one of them right about here. Just gonna go with like a mostly straight line and then match it up on the other side. And they just kind of come out with their little feet at the bottom. And then we've got one more tree over here. We just see the right side of it. So I'm just going to draw a line down here. These do not need to be perfect lines. One thing I do want you to note is that the bottom of this tree is lower down on the paper than the bottom of this tree. And that shows that this tree is a little bit further away from us. So just make sure the bottom of the tree on the left is a little bit closer to the bottom of the paper than the tree on the right. Okay. If you'd like to be fancy, you can take an eraser and erase the background lines through the tree because you won't be able to see those. And there's our pencil sketch. Okay, don't think about it too much. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to match the reference photo exactly. It just needs to kind of tell you where those trees are going to be. Okay, any questions so far? Anybody confused right off the bat? Let me know. Otherwise, we will go ahead and move over to our first painting layer. Okay, so over to our painting here. We are going to start with just a very light wash on the background here. We need a gray color, and do we draw the tree branches? No, you don't need to draw the tree branches now. We are going to kind of improv the tree branches later, so we don't need to kind of muddy up our paper with those pencil marks. So don't worry about the tree branches, just the trunks right now. Good question. Okay, so I'm going to, words. I'm going to take my first color, which is going to be Payne's Gray. If you don't have Payne's Gray, mixing blue and black together will get you a pretty close color. You can see that this color is, hang on, very much blue toned. Swatch it for you. Very much blue toned. So if you mix blue and black together, you'll get a very similar color. And what we're going to do is water this color down a lot. So I'm going to take some of this paint that I've already gotten, move it to a separate pan, and just add a bunch of water. We want it to be like really, really watery. This is how we make light colors in watercolor. So you just add water and let the white of the paper be the white paint. So you can see that's like barely there. That's what we want. Is sunset clouds easy for landscape watercolor? I would say so. I think sunsets are very forgiving and they can look a lot of different ways and you can just kind of use fun colors. So I would say they are forgiving, yes. Okay, so what we're doing with this paint here, take your big brush, whatever big brush you're using, and we are just going to go from the top to the horizon line here with this color, adding in more water from our cup halfway down. So what I'm going to do is use horizontal brush strokes here at the top with this watered down gray color. Go right over the trees. We don't need to avoid the trees. And then once I get about halfway to the horizon line, I'm just going to dunk my brush in my water cup, not go into any more paint. Just keep dunking it in my water cup and bring that all the way down to the horizon line. That just lightens that up towards the horizon line there. And you can go back over that if you want to with horizontal brush strokes, but otherwise just leave it flat so it can dry. Okay. So that's going to be our background. Once we paint the rest of it on there, you're not really even going to notice too much that the background is light gray instead of white, but it will affect your painting in a positive way. All right, any questions as we have gotten started here? Anything that anybody needs to know right now? And also we're up to 8.7 thousand likes. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Again, if you just double tap the screen, that sends me likes, helps send the live out to more people. Okay, I am going to go ahead and clean up my palette here while we wait. And if you are painting along with me, just tell me when you're ready and we will go ahead and move on. How do you keep the paper flat? So this is what we talked about at the beginning. I'm using a watercolor block, which means the paper is glued to itself. It's a pad of like 12 sheets of paper, or it was when I bought it. And the paper is glued to itself on the long sides here, if you can see that. So it is glued down to the rest of the block, and then once I'm done with the painting, I will cut the glue and the paper will lift right off, and that keeps the paper flat. Where can I buy the watercolor? You can find it in my Amazon storefront. You can also find it in any art store. It is a very common brand. It is Winsor Newton. Okay, I'm seeing some readies. Perfect. We do want our paper to be dry, and so I'm going to hit mine with my hairdryer really quick. If you have a hairdryer around, that is perfect. It's pretty dry around here right now since it's wintertime, so this will not take very long. But if you do have a hairdryer around, it just helps speed things up. So I apologize for the noise, but it just keeps us moving along. And all you need is for this hill section to be mostly dry. All right, so we are going to mix up the colors that we need for the hill section. And we are going to make a more neutral gray color. Does a napkin work? Napkin for what? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you have any recommendations for cheap start kits? Yeah, if you go to my Amazon storefront, I've got a lot of different things in there, a lot of different price points, so you can find whatever works for you. Those are all my recommendations. Okay, so for this color, you're going to mix together brown and blue. I'm using Van Dyke Brown and Ultramarine Blue, but whatever brown and blue you have in your palette should work. And we do want to do more brown than blue. And when you mix those together, you will get a more neutral gray. So you can see that that almost looks like a watered down black compared to the very blue Payne's gray. Okay, so again, blue and black mixed together. Or sorry, blue and brown mixed together, my bad. And what we're gonna do is the same thing that we just did with that Payne's gray. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this color, this concentrated color, move it to a separate pan and add some water and maybe just a touch more blue. So we are making two versions of this color. One of them is much lighter and one of them is much darker. Okay, so I've now watered that down. So now we have two versions of the same color. Thank you guys for helping them out in the comments. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm switching over to my medium brush now. And what we're going to do is cover the entire hill section with this lighter gray color. So everything from the horizon line up to that little hill that we drew when we made our pencil sketch. And then we are going to quickly go into that darker gray color, and we're just going to drop that in along the horizon line, and you'll see what I mean. You do want to work somewhat quickly here, and I am going to do these steps at the same, quickly, because you want to do this while the paint is still wet. So I'm just going to fill in the hill in the background here. I am painting around these trees, so I'm not painting through the trees here, just loosely painting around the trees. Okay, and once I have filled that in, you don't even need to wash your brush, just go straight into that darker gray, and you're just gonna dot that at the bottom of the hillside at the horizon line here. And you can see that the color kind of spreads upward into that wet paint, and it'll kind of look like distant trees. You can add a few of those dots kind of going up the hillside there if you want, but mostly stick to kind of the horizon line there. Okay, and once you've added that in, just leave it alone, let it dry. I couldn't see the trees you were talking about until now. That's funny. Where will you be when TikTok's gone? That's a good question. Something I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So yeah, it's not looking good for TikTok, is it? And that's very sad to me because I am a full-time artist, and this app is literally how I was able to make my living. So the answer is that I will mostly be on YouTube. I have an Instagram. It is the same handle as TikTok, so if you'd like to follow me there, that's probably where all my short form videos will be for now, until an app comes along that is better than Instagram. Yeah, so please do subscribe to my channel on YouTube. It is linked in my link tree. You can find it. It is one of the main links there, and it'll take you right to it. I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is crazy, and I'm trying to get there, so that would be very helpful if you would go subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And I think I am going to kind of put more effort into making longer form videos that will go on YouTube. I will still make short form videos that'll go on Instagram Reels, and so you can follow me there as well. But YouTube is kind of the one that I think I'm going to focus more on. For monetizing, for me, as like, you know, someone who makes videos, it is a much better deal for me than Instagram. I get like literally no money from Instagram, and I get a fair amount from YouTube already, even though I don't have a ton of, you know, subscribers or viewers on my videos. So that's probably where I'll be. And I would love, love, love for you guys to follow me there. That is also probably where Paint and Sips will be going. So if you want to keep joining these Paint and Sips, I'll probably be able to do like 1 or 2 more on TikTok. But after that, it's probably going to be on YouTube, YouTube Live. And then those will just be uploaded, the recordings, to YouTube so that people can watch those later. So again, I really hope that you find me on other social media apps. This is, you know, really, really sad. I've really worked hard on my TikTok, and I really, really love sharing my art knowledge and sharing my art just kind of generally with you guys, and TikTok's the way that I've been able to do that. So it is sad, but I do hope you find me other places so that we can continue to kind of work together. TikTok is going away. Yeah, and in the US, it's not looking good for TikTok, which is super frustrating and really hypocritical, but I'm not going to get too into it here. Name the same on YouTube. It is Hannah Art and Prints, so it's similar. I think you can also search Hannah MP on there, but it is also just linked in my link tree in my bio on TikTok, so you can just find it that way. It'll take you straight to my profile, and you can subscribe. All right, so before we talk too much more about that, let's go ahead and move on to our next step here. We are going to dry this landscape here in the back, so I'm just going to hit it with my hairdryer one more time. If yours is already dry, then you're good to go. You're ready to move on to the next step. And I do have a super quick little nerdy thing to share with you. So the reason why I like to make my own gray or black like that color that we just used, is that when you use it in watercolor, I don't know if you can see quite as well on the camera, but in person you can see that those colors kind of separate just a little bit when you put them on the paper. So you can see sections where you can see the blue and where you can see the brown. And I just really love that color variation that you can just get without having to put too much effort into that. So I love that. Can't you move the paint when blow drying it? Yes, so I try to wait to blow dry it until it's like halfway dry. It's still shimmery and stuff, but then I can hit it with a hairdryer. I also hold my hairdryer pretty far away from the painting until it's mostly dry. That way the paint doesn't get pushed around. That's a good question. Okay, so let's go ahead and paint in these distant trees here. Let's go back to our reference photo. So you can see that we have painted in the hill in the background here. I'll zoom in a little bit. And we need to add these kind of evergreen trees that we can see kind of sticking up here. Okay, so we're gonna add a green color and add those trees in. Okay, so for your green color, you are going to mix together green. I have sap green here, but whatever green you have on your palette is fine. Blue, I'm gonna use ultramarine blue, and brown. And that's the way I like to darken my green colors, by adding blue and brown. Until you get an evergreen color that you like. Just subscribe to your YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And please do let me know, like on YouTube or here, whatever, any suggestions that you have for videos. I'm happy to you know, take suggestions for longer form videos, things people want to see on there. All right, so there's that color, pretty dark green. Okay, so we are going to go to our detail brush now. So I'm using my 2 round, this little tiny guy, and we are going to go into that green color and just paint some loose triangles. Since these are pretty distant trees, we don't need very detailed trees. So I'm just going to start from the top and just kind of scribble my way into some loose triangles like that. And you can just put as many as you want throughout this hill. So I'm going to add some that are in front, kind of ending at the horizon line here. And then you can also add some that you can only kind of see the tops of like that. So just smaller triangles, scribbly. I like to vary the heights of them, kind of change up the shape a little bit. What colors did you mix for the evergreen? It was green, blue, and brown. And before we move on too fast, I do really appreciate everybody who has subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. This live will be uploaded to YouTube later today. So if you are painting along with me, or if you're not and you want to find this live later, it will be uploaded there, along with all of the previous paint sips. So you can follow along with those and kind of skip through any parts that are taking too long, or you can pause it if you need to work on something a little bit more. What is the YouTube account again? It is Hannah Art and Prints. You can also just go to the link tree in my TikTok bio, and there's a link in there to my YouTube channel, so that could be easier than typing that in. Hannah Art and Prints. And while we're on the topic, while we're just adding these trees, feel free to add as many or as few as you want. If you kind of come to a spot where you feel like that's enough trees, but I'm still working, feel free to stop. You don't have to add trees until I'm done. It is your painting, so don't feel like you need to add more trees than you want to. But while we were talking on the topic of my link tree, I am a full-time artist, and so these are my little plugs for myself, just since you are a captive audience to, continue paying my rent. If you'd like to support me, going to that link tree in my bio is the best way to kind of go to different places. So the first link that you'll see in there is a link to my book, Watercolor Wanderlust, which is basically these paint and sips in book form. So you can kind of work through them at your own pace, and there's a ton of different tips and tricks in there that you can kind of take to painting your own landscapes. It would be a great gift for the holidays, so if you're looking for a gift for an artsy friend, that would be a great gift, or a little treat for yourself. It is called Watercolor Wanderlust, and the cover looks like this. I'm very proud of it. Came out in April this year, and I just love it. So if you're looking for a gift, and I know holiday shopping is kind of winding down, but this would be a great gift for people. So again, Watercolor Wanderlust, that's the first link in my link tree. The second link in my link tree is my Etsy shop. So if you'd like to find all of the paintings that I make and sell, that's where you'll find those. I have original paintings. I also have bookmarks, postcards, prints, a bunch of stuff at a lot of different price points. So even if you don't have a huge budget, there's a ton of stuff in there that you can find. And art really just makes a great gift, and you're supporting a local artist and a small business. So I just really like to encourage people to check out my Etsy shop. And if you scroll down in there, you will also find my watercolor set that I helped design with Artistro. That would be a great gift as well. And I have my Patreon in there. My YouTube channel is in there again, like I said, so you can follow that. And if you'd like to leave me a tip for today's lesson, that is always very much appreciated. There's a little $ symbol at the top of my link tree, and that will take you right to my PayPal. So that's just a good way to do that. And if anybody has any questions about that, please let me know. But any way that you choose to support me is wonderful, even if it's just, you know, liking my content, leaving comments, putting a YouTube video of mine on while you're doing something else. All of that really, really helps. If you'd like to support a small artist who, in this weird, crazy, and unsettling time, is just trying to paint some beautiful things and you know, make a living. So I appreciate it. All right, I think that's enough trees. There's never too many trees, but like, I think that's enough trees. All right. I don't know what a link tree is. So if you just click on if you go to my bio, if you go to my page, there's a link right underneath my picture, and that is a link tree. So if you click on that link, you'll get a bunch of options. All right, so now we are going to do the fun part of this painting, which is the paint splatter that we're going to do for the trees here. So we're going to paint some of these leaves on purpose, like with our brush, and then we are going to use a paint splatter technique to get some randomness there. And this is a technique that I really love, and we're going to have fun. So let's mix up some colors. So I'm going to just clean up really quickly my palette here, so that I have some room. If anybody has any burning questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. All right. So let's get our two colors. We are going to get kind of more of a orangey color, and more of a brown color. So I'm going to mix together orange. Sorry for the cars outside. I apologize. Orange and brown, just a little bit of brown mixed together, and add some water. So this first color again is orange and a little bit of brown plus water. You'll get a color kind of like that. And then we're going to make a darker brown color. So we're going to mix together orange, a little bit more brown, and a little bit of blue. And a little bit of red. So sorry, this is going to be a 4-color mixture. Orange, red, blue, brown. Until you get kind of a reddish brown that you like. Again, orange, red, blue, brown. And add some water too. So there's our two colors. We want pretty vibrant colors. Okay. The quality of watercolor palette is matter. Yeah, I would say the quality of your paint does matter, and not, you know, in a huge way. You can still make beautiful paintings with, you know, cheaper paints, but I do enjoy nicer paints. I think they give you a better result. All right, so what we're going to do is, as we're painting in these trees here, we have kind of clusters of leaves around here. So we have a cluster kind of around the top of the trunk here, and then we've got some clusters kind of going along these branches. So you don't need to copy these branches exactly, but what I want you to do is imagine that you have some branches kind of coming from this tree, wherever you want them to be, and you're just going to hold your brush completely upright here, load it up with this light orange paint, and just dot randomly and somewhat firmly into your painting like this. It's going to shake my camera, so I apologize. I hope to not give you motion sickness. But this is how you're going to create these branches, dotting pretty firmly and quickly into your paper. And I'm just going to imagine a branch is kind of coming this way. So I'm just going to create little clusters of leaves around where that branch is kind of headed. I don't want to make like a completely straight line. I want to make this an organic shape, but I am just following kind of an idea of where I want a branch to be. So this is where you're kind of making it up as you go along. And trust me, it's going to turn out okay. Just don't panic about it too much. So we're clustering them together, really kind of jabbing at your paper. We're not being gentle here. Okay, maybe I have a branch kind of coming down this way. I give up to watercolor, it's so difficult. It is hard. It does just take practice. Like anything else, It takes practice and a little bit of letting go of any control or expectations. And even I make bad watercolor paintings, you know, pretty frequently. Like it just happens, and you just have to kind of accept that. And it's just part of the process. Okay, so once I have kind of established the general form of my branches there, I'm just going to go straight into that darker color, and we're just going to drop this in and continue to kind of make those dots. Let this color blend with that orange color. So you don't need to let it dry. In fact, I would recommend not letting it dry. And we're just dropping in this brown color. And just try and be as random as you can. Like it just doesn't need to follow any sort of pattern. I can't find your book on Etsy. So my book is not on Etsy. My book is distributed by a publisher. So my book is anywhere that you want to buy a book. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Target, Walmart, anywhere that you choose to buy a book. That's where you'll find it. And if you go to my link tree and click on that first link that says Watercolor Wanderlust, it'll take you to all those different options, so you can choose. And it doesn't matter to me. Anywhere that you buy the book gives me the same amount of royalties, so it's just up to you and your preferences. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. And we are going to let this mostly dry, but don't get rid of these colors on your palette. We're gonna go back to those. So if you wanna let it air dry, you can. I'm going to hit it with my hairdryer really quick, just to kind of speed this along. It does not need to be fully dry. How do you seal your paintings to protect them, and if so, how? Not usually with watercolor. Some people like cold wax medium. I really don't. I don't like the texture of the wax, and it kind of rubs off on your hands if you're handling the paper. So I don't really like it, but some people do use it. Watercolor generally, as long as you're using, you know, a decent watercolor, does not need to be sealed. It should be kept out of direct sunlight, but that's the same with most art. And I just don't think it's really worth it to seal it besides that. So that's more of a personal preference, but you don't really need to seal it. Good question. When I stopped trying to make everything look perfect is when my paintings got better. Absolutely. That is 100% the key to watercolor. All right, that's mostly dry. So now what we're gonna do is have a little fun, because what is watercolor painting without fun? What you're gonna need to do is grab a paper towel or two. So I'm just grabbing a fresh paper towel, and we are going to block off the sections of this painting that we don't want to have paint splatter. So that is going to be this tree on the side of our painting here. So I'm gonna put a paper towel down over that tree, and I'm gonna put another one across the horizon, across the hill here. So now we have kind of blocked off just this spot where we want the paint splatter to be. This is important to do because paint splatter is not controllable and it will go wherever. So we just want to kind of make sure it is only going in the spots where you're okay with it going. So I'm gonna go back to my brush here and go into my orange paint, load up my brush, get as much paint on there as you can, and then I'm gonna hold it over my painting a couple inches from the surface and just tap it with my index finger like this. And that will start to give me that paint splatter, and you'll get these really fine droplets of paint, and that will just look like more natural leaf texture. Okay, so when your brush runs out, you can either go back into that orange or you can switch over to the brown. It doesn't matter. And we're just gonna keep adding paint splatter. Now be aware, this is a technique that's addicting and you can really go overboard with the paint splatter. So just keep that in mind. Don't go overboard, just do it a couple times and then stop. So I'm gonna stop. It's really addicting, so I completely understand. I just wanna keep doing it, but I'm gonna stop there. And then you can take away your paper towels. Okay, so go nuts, make that happen. And you can see, if I zoom in here, how you just get those really fine little droplets there. And they're just kind of randomly placed throughout the painting, and I just really like that effect. All right, let's see if I missed any comments here. You showed up in my feed and I bought your book a few weeks ago. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. I hope you love the book. All right, let me know where you're at. Let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow for anybody. And if you're painting along with me, let me know how you're doing. Once you're done with your paint splatter, you can clean up your palette so that we can move on to the next color. That was fun. I love a good paint splatter. It's so much fun. I'm ready. Perfect. I got a little close to the horizon with the leaves. That's okay. As long as it's not, you know, covering your entire paper, we just want to keep it, you know, concentrated to where the leaves would actually be. I'm loving this one so far. Oh, good. I'm glad. Cleaning out the paint hurts. Gave one of your prints to a friend and he loved it. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I'm not seeing any panicked waits, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next and mostly final step. We might have one or two more steps after that, but we're getting to the end here. So we need to paint in our tree trunks now. So now it's time to paint in the actual trees. So we need a couple of colors. It's going to be pretty much the same colors that we used for the background. So again, mixing together brown and blue, pretty concentrated version, and a little bit more brown than blue like before. Even more brown than blue actually. So we want this to be kind of a neutral brown. And I'll swatch that for you. So again, brown and blue, a little bit more brown than blue this time. It does not need to be fully dry, no. So pretty dark brown basically. Seems like so much waste of paint for a small job. It's not really a waste of paint. There's a lot of water in that paint. So it's, you know, pretty watery. It's not really a lot of waste of paint. Plus, you always want to have more paint than you think you need, because in watercolor, if you run out of paint and you're trying to do something that requires you to, you know, add paint kind of quickly, you just don't want to run out of paint. It's really awkward and you get some weird textures. So I always try to overestimate the amount of paint that I need. And if I waste a little bit, you charge it to the game. You're almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. I know, I'm really trying to get to 10K. I hope you guys can help me do that today. Do you prefer to display your artworks behind glass or bare? You know, I really don't frame a lot of my artwork. I would say if I had a preference, I would say behind glass for watercolor paper, because it's kind of warped and so the glass kind of helps it flatten out a little bit. But if it's like an oil painting or something like that, I would prefer bare. Sorry, I did not tell you what to do. For the second one, you're just going to make a watered down version of that same color. So I mixed up the same color in the second pan, added some water, and that's that swatch right there. Sorry, I got distracted. Just subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with this tree here, the one in the distance, the one that we just painted all these leaves for. We are going to start with that more concentrated color and your detail brush. And I'm going to start at the top here. I can kind of see where my tree trunk goes, and I'm going to, basically, this part is a little tedious, so just bear with me here. As we go through the trees, you're going to paint brown anywhere that the tree trunk would be and anywhere that is blank. So I'm just painting around the most of the orange splatters that we just made. So I'm using, again, the darker brown that we mixed with blue and brown. And I'm just going to basically paint by numbers the tree trunk where it would be through the leaves. If you have like little teeny tiny spots, don't worry about painting around those. Just kind of fill in these bigger shapes that you see. Kind of like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh no. Okay. So again, I'm just kind of painting through. I can see the pencil marks, the old pencil marks from where my tree trunk should be. So I'm just following that. Okay, and once you get to where you're not really painting around the leaves anymore, just go ahead and stop. You can just kind of fade out this color, just kind of do some vertical lines, and switch to that lighter color. So once you get past the leaves here, I am switching to the lighter color, that watered down color that we made, to fill in the rest of the trunk. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We are doing that because there are leaves up here, that trunk is going to be much darker. And down here where it's bare, there's more light coming through. I reached 10K on YouTube, thank you so much. I appreciate it, you guys. You guys are the best. I hope we can kind of recreate what we had on TikTok over on YouTube. I really want to kind of continue interacting with all of you guys and kind of just helping with art and also, you know, paying my rent. Both of those things can be accomplished over there. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Okay. And then once you've done that, I don't mean to move on too quickly, but if you're ready, we can go back to that darker color, that darker brown. And hang on, I'm just mixing a little bit more of it. Again, still using my tiny brush. We are going to create the actual branches. So I'm going to kind of follow along with the general branch shapes that we made before. And you have a choice here. You can either, well, you always have to fill in the branch where there's blank space. So like right there, if my branch is going through here, this is a blank space. So my branch has to show up through that blank space. But you also have a choice to paint over some of the leaves that we just made. So these are your options. If you're just kind of following along where this branch is going to go, you know, you can do that. You can also just paint over some of those leaves. But you always have to fill it in where there's blank spot. Hopefully that made sense. I don't know if it did. But what I would recommend as well as you're painting in these branches is just to use as light of a touch as you can as you get out toward the end of the branches. And then add just kind of a couple ancillary branches, twigs, coming off of the main one that connect the rest of the leaves to the main branch, or the majority of the leaves. Why can't you first do the branches? So that's a good question. So when you're painting with watercolor, the light color, you can only go from light to dark in watercolor. So you can't go from a dark paint to a light paint on the paper. So if I've already filled in the branches, which are this dark brown, and then I painted over the lighter leaves, you would still be able to see the branch through the lighter leaves. And so I do it this way so that you get this more 3D effect where you have those leaves showing through and above the branch. I hope that made sense. I'm not sure if it did. But that is why we do it this way, or at least we do for this painting. Okay, so again, you have the choice. You can either paint like I just did right over those leaves, or you kind of skip over those sections. I'm so glad I'm joining a live watercolor class. I just bought items and want to do homemade Christmas cards. Oh, good. I actually am planning a YouTube video, not to keep plugging my YouTube channel, because you guys have already been so generous, but I just want to let you know, I am planning a YouTube video on Christmas cards / just general holiday watercolor paintings. So that will be coming out hopefully on Wednesday. So just make sure you stay tuned for that. I will also probably make some TikToks focused on that too. Did you splash the paint to make the leaves? Yes, we kind of did a combo of paint splashing and just kind of dotting the paint on there with a paintbrush. Also, just want to add, feel free to add some branches that don't necessarily connect to any of these leaves. This is a winter tree, so there are some bare branches on this tree. So not all of them have to connect to a branch. Or leaves. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Will this live be available on YouTube? Yes, it will be. hopefully later today. It just depends on my internet upload speed. But it will be uploaded later today. I will also mention that I really love doing like an art gallery for people who join me and painted with me. So if you are comfortable sharing your painting in public, share your painting on your Instagram story and tag me, same handle as TikTok, and I will reshare all of the posts that I get so that everybody can see everybody's painting. If you don't feel comfortable sharing it publicly, feel free to just send it to me in a DM. I would love to see it. You don't have to share it publicly, but if you do, then I will be able to add it to the art gallery. And I really love seeing everybody's painting. Where can I buy that brush, please? This is from Christy Rice's brush set. She is a TikToker, Christy Rice. And if you just go to her website, you can find this brush set. I really like it. She was very nice and sent it to me for free, but I probably would have bought it anyway. All right, so I'm just kind of finishing up adding in my branches here. Feel free to, add as many or as few branches as you like. I do think that at a certain point it becomes too many branches, so just keep that in mind. You don't want to get to the too many branches part. Okay. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. I could add probably some more branches, but I think I'm gonna stop there and just kind of let it sit. And if I wanna add more branches later, I can. Okay, so now, just so that we're kind of even, let's go ahead and fill in this tree on the other side with that same lighter brown color. So the color that we watered down, that we filled in this trunk with, just fill in this tree with it as well. This reminds me of when I lived in Napa. I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that before. So you can see I turned my painting over on the other side because that gives me a better angle to get the edge of this tree with the tip of my brush. And I just get a little more control that way. So I just turned it upside down for that. Okay. Now, while that dries, Northeast PA, gotcha. I am not versed in the Northeast geography terms. All right. So now while that dries, tips for base of tree. So I like to add these little feet. You can see here, just these little sections where the roots kind of enter the ground instead of just a flat line. So I kind of make it a little wavy, add these little feet. Same thing for this tree over here. The feet kind of go out to the outside and then it's kind of wavy in the middle. It's not as important when it's snow because these trees are standing in snow. There's kind of snow drifts covering the trunk, so it's not quite as important for what the base of the tree looks like. But generally, that's my advice. All right, so what we're going to do, as kind of our second to last step, I would say, is add some texture to these trees. So I'm going to go back to that darker gray color with my detail brush. I am going to load up my brush and then unload a lot of the paint onto my paper towel. Okay, so I just have a little bit of paint left. And then I'm going to hold my brush mostly sideways, so the long side of the brush is touching the paper. And I'm just going to scrape my brush vertically along the trunk. And I will get this very pretty, very realistic, kind of rough bark texture. Okay, so you do that until your brush truly runs out of paint. And then you reload it with that paint, tap off a lot of it onto your brush, onto your paper towel, and then scrape the side of it along the tree. I like to do, because I'm right-handed, I like to do the left half of the tree. And then once I'm done with that, I will rotate my paper so that then I can do the right half, but it feels like the left half to me. If that makes sense. That way the tip of my brush can follow along with the edge of the tree, and I get a little more control there. I love this texture technique. You can use it for so much. You can use it for water, you can use it for rocks, literally almost anything you can use a dry brushing texture for. So this is called a dry brushing texture, if I didn't say that already. So that if you hear it later, you know what that is. And it's kind of a misnomer because the brush is still wet, like it still has paint on it, but it just has a lot less paint than you'd expect. Okay, so once you've filled up the tree with that texture, you can either leave it if you're happy with it, or you can go back in with that color, but not removing a ton of it with your paper towel. And you can add little vertical lines like cracks along the bark there. You can add little pockets like little holes in the tree, like this. You can just add to that texture until you're happy with how the tree looks. I like to do a mixture of both of those textures. So I'm adding in some little holes and pockets and cracks along the bark like this. Hopefully that makes sense. I can zoom that in a little bit too. Make sure you don't forget the bottom of the tree as well. You can get some really nice like shadows in here where those feet are. That. Okay, and once you're happy with it, just leave it alone. You can do that same thing with that watered down brown as well. If you want to just add some like lighter shadows or just some like slightly darker areas, you can do that with that watered down brown as well. Just washing that over certain sections of the tree. So those are your options. You don't have to do all of those things that I just mentioned, but I just like to give you options. Okay, and now we are going to do the same thing with this trunk over here. Now, I think I'm going to switch to my medium brush because this is a much bigger area and it's closer to us. We want this texture to be a little bit larger, which means I need to use a bigger brush. So I'm switching over to my Foreground here, my medium brush, and I'm just going to do the exact same technique. So I'm loading up my brush with that darker brown, tapping off a lot of it onto my paper towel, and then I am going to flip my painting upside down so that I get that control here with the edge of my brush, and using the side of my brush to just scrape that along the paper. Your bigger brush will hold more paint, and so you might get some areas with like a lot of paint, but as it runs out, you'll get some really nice dry brushing texture there. Does the direction of light not matter in snow because the snow reflects light so much? Yes, so yes and no. So if it's a sunny snow day, the direction of light definitely matters. There will be shadows, there will be light areas, and it's basically the same as any other landscape. But we are doing an overcast snow day, which means there's really no shadows. If you've ever like been skiing on an overcast day, you know, it's really hard to see. Or if you've ever been kind of walking in the snow on an overcast day, there's no shadows in the snow. And so it's really hard to see. So this is why we have really no shadows in this landscape, because it's an overcast snowy day. So it's kind of nice. You don't really need to worry about your shadow direction or anything, or your light. But that also makes it hard to get a compelling reference photo or painting because you don't have a clear direction of light. So what we're relying on in this painting is this color, the color contrast between this orange and this blue and gray that we have in the painting. So we're relying on that to make a compelling painting rather than the contrast of light. That's getting a little bit into the nerdy side of art, but those are kind of the things that make a compelling painting. Why upside down? I kind of said this before, but because I'm right-handed, the edge of my brush needs to kind of match up with the edge of the object. And so if I were to paint it this way, first of all, my entire hand has to be sitting on the painting, and I don't like to do that. And then I would be relying on the non-controlled, like this part of my brush basically, to get to the edge, and it would end up looking messy. I wouldn't be able to get this nice clean line at the edge of the trunk. So I turned it upside down so that the part that I control the most, which is the end of the brush, can be at the spot where I need the most control, which is the edge of the trunk here. No worries. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and then once you're done with that dry brushing texture, again, you can do the same thing that we did before where you add some vertical lines. I like to do like little wavy lines to look like the cracks in the trunk. You can add some shadows to the feet. You can add some little dots that will look like little holes in the bark. My dry brushing always seems to have a pattern. Any tips? Yeah, I mean, just trying to make it as random as you can, like starting your brush strokes in different areas, and maybe try using a different brush. You could switch out your brush kind of halfway through. That'll get you a different texture. Although, like, the dry brushing is meant to be almost a pattern. You can see that that this creates kind of a pattern up the trunk of of the bark, and that's okay. But that's also why I'm adding these textures in afterwards with the tip of my brush, these dots and holes and lines, is also to kind of break up that pattern. Just ordered your book. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you love it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Again, if you want to keep adding some texture to those trunks, you're welcome to. Will you still go live if on YouTube? Yes. Yeah. So if I'm, yeah, like I said before, earlier today, we are going to be moving over to YouTube if and when TikTok ends up banned in the US, which is really unfortunate. So, yes, I will be able to go live on YouTube. So these paint and sips will be still happening. They'll just be on YouTube. And I'll need to figure out kind of how that goes. So there might be a tester in there. All right, we are almost to the end of this painting, and we are kind of through everything that the reference photo has told us to do. But when I was doing this painting originally, I just found that there's a lot of kind of open space here with the snow, and it's nice to kind of break that up. So what we're going to do is use pretty much the same color that we've been using. There's a lot of gray and brown in this painting. So I'm gonna mix a little bit more of it, brown and blue. Get to a gray color. You can add maybe a little burnt sienna or a little red in there just to kind of change things up a little bit. And we are going to add some grass / twigs sticking out of the snow. And this is going to just kind of break up that large section of unpainted paper. So I'm going to use my detail brush. I might actually switch to an even smaller detail brush. If you have one, feel free to do that. Here it is. It's a 0 round. It's even smaller. And I'm going to go into this paint. And I like to do this first around the trunk of the trees, because if we're going to get into the weeds here, the way that snow falls, there's always a tree well. So there's always sections, or there's always kind of a lower spot around trees because of the way the snow falls. And so you're more likely to kind of see grass or twigs sticking out from under the trees, sticking out of the snow from under the trees. So I'm just going to add some kind of shaky hand twigs, grass coming out from underneath the tree. Again, just using my little detail brush. If you make this as a Christmas card, doesn't matter what size brush. So the brush size just needs to kind of scale with the size of your painting. I don't know how big of a painting you're doing, but if you're making a bigger painting, obviously even your detail brushes need to be a little bit bigger. And if you're making a smaller painting, your brushes need to be a little smaller. So it just kind of depends. If you're doing a Christmas card, it's probably no bigger than 5 by 7. So your brushes should be about the same size as what I'm using now. So my big brush was a 10 round, medium brush was a 4 round, and my smallest brush is a 0 round. Okay, so after you've added the the grass and the twigs and stuff around the trees. Feel free to add as much or as little of it as you want throughout the painting. I like to add just kind of little clusters of it in random places, kind of sticking out of the snow. And it's going to look weird when you put down the first couple of ones, but it's going to make sense after a little while, I promise. And I know we're at 4:05, so I understand if people need to go. We just have like one more small step right after this, so if you can hang on with me, that would be lovely. If not, it was lovely to see you. Paint and Sip will not be back until the beginning of the year. This is the last Paint and Sip of the year. I will be taking a break for the rest of the year. So Paint and Sip will be back in January, I promise. And I would love to see you there. Maybe someone's New Year's resolution is to paint a little bit more, so that would be a lovely way to join me. A lovely way to kind of start the Paint and Sips again. Okay, and I don't want to overdo it on the grass here, so I think I'm going to stop right there. Okay. And our last little step here is to add a little bit of shadow. I know I said there's not really any shadows, but we're going to add just like a tiny amount of shadow to the trees and the grass and twigs that we just painted. So I'm just going to take some ultramarine blue in my palette here and add just a little bit of that brown color that we were just using. And you're just going to make kind of a blue-gray color and add a bunch of water to it. So it should be really, really light. Thank you all. Happy holidays. Thank you all so much. Again, Paint and Sip is still going on, but if people need to leave, I understand. But I will do an official end of Paint and Sip in just a few minutes when we're done. Okay, so it should look kind of like that, maybe a little bit more water. We want this to be really, really watered down. Even more. Just keep adding water. How about that? Okay, perfect. So back to my painting here. I'm just going to I'm using my detail brush still, and I'm just going to take this paint and do kind of a loose line, loose kind of shadow around the trunks of the trees, and just kind of lightly around the grass here. So maybe just like one little pocket mark around the grass. I will zoom that in. I watched the whole tutorial while doing my makeup, but tomorrow I'll try this. It's beautiful. Good, I'm glad. I watched the whole tutorial while doing my makeup, but tomorrow I'll try this. It's beautiful. Good, I'm glad. Painting, and I feel like it's pretty approachable for anybody. So again, I'm just kind of picking out where I have these grasses and just adding a really light, kind of rounded, loose line underneath the grass there, kind of like that. And again, around this tree. And then if you're feeling brave, you can add some little footprints or kind of pocket marks that don't relate to any of the grass around here. You know, there are animals and stuff that walk through the snow, so sometimes you'll just get these little pocket marks of shadow around the foreground. Okay, don't want to overdo that either, so we will just call that good, I think. Yeah, okay, that's enough. I am going to sign the painting in the corner here, probably with that dark brown. I do like to, I would recommend you sign your paintings just to get in the habit. There we go. And then I will show you how I get the painting off of the watercolor block, if in case you're curious about that. Like I said before, if you're buying watercolor paper and it says block in the title, that means the pages are bound with glue on at least 2 sides. Sometimes they will be bound on all 4 sides with just a little slit that is not bound, and so you'll need to kind of disconnect those pages once you're done painting on it. So I take my palette knife, you can just use a butter knife, and I slide it between the painting that we just made and the next page, and then I use it to gently break the glue on the sides. Do that same thing to the other side here. And then that painting comes off and we have a nice fresh page for the next time. So there's our final painting there. Again, this watercolor block is linked in my Amazon storefront. So if you're looking for any art supplies, including this little watercolor block that I use for paint and sips, it is in my Amazon storefront. Okay. So I really do hope that you enjoyed today's painting lesson. I had a lot of fun with you guys, and I love how this painting turned out, so I'm very happy with today. Again, if you'd like to support me, I am a full-time artist, and I do really appreciate any sort of support that you can give me. If you go to my link tree in my bio, you will find my YouTube channel. It is linked in there, so you can find that. This recording will be uploaded later today. That is also kind of where I'm going to focus my posting on if and when TikTok gets banned. So please do subscribe over there so that you don't lose me. I will continue to kind of teach you guys how to paint and share my paintings with you. So please do join me on YouTube. My book, Watercolor Wanderlust, is available anywhere you buy books. This is basically these paint and sip sessions in a book form. So if you'd like to grab this book, it is available anywhere you find books. It's also in my link tree, so you can find it there. This would also be a great gift for the holidays. So just make sure you check that out. It's a ton of information in here, and really doable but pretty landscape painting. So please do check it out. You'll also find my Etsy shop in there. The main thing that I like to promote are my calendars. These are just available around this time of year. They are for 2025. And when you cut off the days, you get a 5x5 art print out of every month. So I do recommend checking out my Etsy store. I have these calendars here, and I've got original paintings, prints, postcards, bookmarks, all the stuff, and at a lot of different price points. So there's lots of stuff that's, under $10. So if you'd like to get a little something for someone in your holiday shopping, please do check out my Etsy shop. And there are a bunch of other links in there that you can click on to support me. My watercolor palette with Artistro, my Patreon. Again, my YouTube channel is the thing that I'm promoting the most today. And if you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, I do really, really appreciate that as well. If you click on the little $ in my link tree, you'll go straight to my PayPal. So that's the best way to do that, if you'd like to do that. And thank you so much for joining me. If you painted along with me, please do post your painting on Instagram. On your story, tag me, and I will repost everybody so that we can see everybody's painting. So again, if you'd like to participate in the little art gallery that we do every week, just post your painting on your story, tag me, same handle as TikTok, and I will repost everybody's. Otherwise, I hope you have a happy holidays. I will see you again at the beginning of the year for Paint and Sip again. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me.